We continue now at the top of Daf Yomi Gemara from Meseches Horayos. This is Horayos Daf 11a. On the previous Amud, the Gemara brought a statement from Rabbi Yochanan that HaKadosh Baruch Hu rewards clean speech, and we see that from the daughters of Lot, because the oldest daughter of Lot, she named her child Moav, indicating that the child came from her father. That was not a form of clean speech, and therefore by Moav it says that we're not allowed to go to war with them. Hudalo, it's war that's not allowed. Hatziyurei tsarinu, but we are allowed to harass them. V'ilu tzira, now whereas by the younger daughter of Lot, Dekarya ben Ami, she called her son Ben Ami, that's a reference to Ammon, so that was a clean form of speech. So there Amarle, so there HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe, Al tetzurim v'al tiskor bam klal, afilu tzirei lo. What it means is, don't even harass them. It's not just not to go to war, but you can't even harass them. That was the reward. And the Gemara continues, Amar Reb Chia bar Avin, Amar Reb Yoshua ben Karcha. Reb Chia bar Avin says that Reb Yoshua ben Karcha says, Liolam yaktim adam ledvar mitzvah, a person should try to do a mitzvah as soon as possible. Shebeschar laila achas shekidma bechir letzira, as a reward for the one night earlier that the older daughter of Lot went before the younger daughter of Lot to have a child from Lot. Zachsa v'kidma sa'ar badoros lamalchus, she merited 4 generations earlier that her descendants entered into Klal Yisrael. Rashi explains, v'kidma sa'ar badoros, she was 4 generations earlier, be Yisrael and Klal Yisrael, because it was Oved, Yishai, David, Shlomo. Those are the 4 generations. V'ilu tzira lo have be Yisrael. When it came to the younger daughter, so her descendant didn't enter Klal Yisrael, and Rechavam ben Shlomo, until Rechavam, the son of Shlomo, so that's 4 generations later, to have ale minamu ha'amonis, because he came from Namu ha'amonis. Again, that's from Ammon. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanon, the rabbis taught, Mayam ha'oretz, the pasuk says Mayam ha'oretz, the full pasuk, V'im nefesh achas techeta v'shkaga Mayam ha'oretz, if somebody sins b'shkaga from among the people, ba'asosa achas mitzvos Hashem asher lo se'asen of Hashem, it talks about the fact that there's a sin b'shogeg, so you have to bring a carbon. And so the Brisa darshans from the pasuk of Mayam ha'oretz, prat l'mashiach, this excludes the Kohen Gadol, and Mayam ha'oretz also, again, it says from among the people, prat l'nasi, this excludes the nasi, they don't have to bring these karbonos, because they have special karbonos in these circumstances. And the Brisa says, V'alo kvar yatzu Mashiach. Now, what's the point of excluding the Kohen Gadol? But the Kohen Gadol is already excluded, lidon bepar, because he brings a par, and nasi lidon besar. And isn't a nasi also excluded? Because the Torah already says that he brings a sar. So what do you need the pasuk? What do you need the words in the pasuk Mayam ha'oretz to exclude a Kohen Gadol, to exclude a nasi? It's obvious that they are excluded. They have their own karbonos. And so the Brisa explains, Sheyachol Mashiach, because one might think when it comes to a Kohen Gadol, al helim Davarim Shigagas Maisa, if he has both Helam Davar and Shigagas Maisa, that's the mistaken ruling and then the mistaken action based on the ruling, so maybe par, so then he brings his bull. But al Shigagas Maisa L'chudei, but maybe one might think that if it was just Shigagas Maisa, which is what this pasuk is talking about when an individual sins b'shogeg and he has to bring a carbon chatas, so one might have thought that a Kohen Gadol, if he just has Shigagas Maisa, maybe Kispa Usira, maybe he's like an individual also, and he has to bring either a female sheep or a female goat. Talmud Lomer Mayam ha'oretz prat l'mashiach. That's why the pasuk has to say Mayam ha'oretz to exclude the Kohen Gadol. Mayam ha'oretz prat l'nasi, and then the Brisa says Mayam ha'oretz excludes the king. Now Teinach Mashiach. Now I understand the Kohen Gadol. We just explained why that needs to be excluded. Ela nasi b'shigas ma'isa hu d'maisi, but a nasi actually brings his carbon for just a mistake in terms of action, and so therefore isn't he automatically excluded because we have a special carbon that is brought by the nasi. And the Gemara continues and answers, Amar Rav Zvid Mishmei de Rava. Rav Zvid says in the name of Rava, Hacha b'mayaskin, and here what are we dealing with? Kagon, for example, the following scenario. Sha'achal kazayis chaylev kashu hedyot. Let's say this nasi, this king, he ate a kazayis of chaylev when he was a regular person. V'nismana, and then he was appointed to be the king. V'achar kach nodelo, and then he found out about the aveira that he did while he was a hedyot. So Sa'al gadai t'chamina, one might have thought naisi kisba oseira, that he should bring the carbon of the regular person, a female sheep or a female goat, kamash molon, and so that's what the pasuk is saying. No, it's excluded, and so therefore in this situation he does not bring the carbon of the individual. But the Gemara continues and asks, Hanichol Rabbi Shimon. Now that works out according to Rabbi Shimon, Do'az al Basar Yediyah, because he follows the moment in time when the person finds out about the Aveira. And so in this particular case, since he found out about the Aveira, he was already appointed king, he's not going to bring the carbon of a regular individual. Elul Rabbanan Do'az lo Basar Chata, but according to the Rabbanan who follow the moment of sin, so in this case really he should bring the carbon of an individual, since when he sinned, he was a regular individual, he wasn't a king yet. So Ma'ikol Ameimar, so what are we going to say according to the Rabbanan on again, what is this pasuk coming to exclude a nasi for? Don't we already know that a nasi has his own particular carbon? And so the Gemara continues and answers, Ela Amar Rav Zavid Mishmei de Rava. Rather, Rav Zavid says in the name of Rava, Hacha b'may askin. And here, what are we dealing with? Kagon shachal chatzi kazayis chaylev kishu edyot. He eats a half a zayis of chaylev when he's a regular person. V'nisman, and then he's appointed to be the nasi, to be the king. V'yeshlimo, and then at that point in time he completes. He has another half a kazayis of chaylev. V'yachakach nodelo, and then he finds out. So in this case, al gadai t'chamina, one might have thought in its tarif that you should combine the two half kazesim v'naisi kispo seira, and then he should bring the female sheep or the female goat like a hedyot, like a regular individual. Kamash malon. That's what the pasuk is teaching. That in this case he is excluded. He does not bring the carbon of the individual. And Rashi explains, Sal gadai t'chamina, one might have thought, Hoel v'chota kishu hedyot, if he sinned when he was a regular person, naisi kispo seira kehedyot, then he should bring the female sheep or female goat like a regular person. Kamash malon me'amoritz. That's what me'amoritz teaches. Prat lenasi de'eno mevi kispo seira. Again, we're excluding the nasi. He does not bring the female sheep or the female goat, again in the situation where he found out when he was king. But then the Gemara said, but according to the Rabbanan who follow the moment of sin, then he actually will bring the female sheep or female goat in this particular case, because when he sinned, he was a hedyot. We learned this earlier. If they sin before being appointed and then they're appointed, so then they're considered like regular people. So according to the Rabbanan, what are you going to say? To be why do we have to exclude the nasi? What are we excluding him from? And so then the Gemara gave the case of the half a zayis. One might have thought that you should combine the half a zayis that took place after he was appointed and to the half a zayis that was before, and he should be treated like a regular individual and bring a female sheep or female goat. Comes to teach us the pasuk me'amoritz, we exclude the nasi. In that case, he's not going to bring the female sheep or female goat. And Rashi says, he's also not going to bring the he-goat in that case. Because the point is we're not combining at all, so he doesn't bring either. And Rashi notes, now the Gemara could have equally said, that one might have thought that we should combine and let him bring a soyer. That would have been the same kind of havamina. But since the pasuk is dealing with the female sheep or female goat, that's what it's coming to exclude. And the Gemara continues, Rava asked Rav Nachman the following question, let's say he becomes appointed king, can that become a hefsek? Can that become an interruption? And the Gemara explains the question. What exactly is the case? What's the question? Let's say he ate a half a zayis of chaylev when he was a regular person. And then what happened was he became appointed king, and then he became not the king, and then he completed it and had another half a zayis of chaylev. So in this situation, both chatzi kazesim of chaylev, they were both eaten when he was not king, but he was king in the middle. So hazamu delo mitzdarif. So over there, where he ate the second half a zayis when he was king, so there it doesn't combine. Because he ate half when he was a regular person and half when he was king. But over here, here he ate both half zaysim when he was a regular person. So mitzdarif. So maybe it should combine. Oh, dilmar, maybe loshna. Maybe it doesn't make a difference. That's really like an interruption, and it does not combine. And the Gemara says, so the Gemara says, so what's the answer to this question? And the Gemara says, Tifshut leimeha. We can answer the question from the following. The Amar Ula Amar Rabbi Yochanan, because Ula says that Rabbi Yochanan says, Achal chaylev v'hifresh carbon. Let's say a person ate chaylev and he separated to bring a carbon. V'hemer, then he became a meshumid, he became an apostate who's disqualified from bringing a carbon. V'chazarbo, but then he retracted from that and he gave up his being an apostate. Hoel v'nidcha yidcha, but since he was pushed off, he's pushed off, so it's like an interruption. And so it would seem to be the same thing over here, becoming the king in the middle should be an interruption. But the Gemara continues and says, Hachi hashta, what kind of comparison are you making? Mumar lav bari suye carbon who, a person who's an apostate, so he can't bring a carbon. But hai bari suye carbon who, but over here when he's king, it's just this particular carbon he doesn't bring, but in general, he can bring a carbon, so you cannot compare the two. And the Gemara continues, Boy minei Rabbi Zera me Rav Sheshes. Rabbi Zera asked Rav Sheshes the following question. Achal safek chaylev kishu hadyot. Let's say he ate something where it was a doubt whether it was chaylev. That's when he was a regular person. Vinismana, and then he became king. Vinodelo al sveiko, and then he found out about the doubt. Meaning to say, at that point in time, when he was a king, he found out that he ate a safek chaylev. So what's the halach in that case? And the Gemara says, I'll leave it to Rabbanan da azli basar chata. Now, according to the Rabbanan who follow the moment of sin, lo tiboilach, it's not a question to maisi asham tali, because in this situation, he will bring an asham tali. He ate safek chaylev when he was a hedyot, so he has to bring an asham tali. Elakiti boilach, I'll leave it to Rabbi Shimon, but it's a question according to Rabbi Shimon who follows the moment of the idea, the moment of finding out. Midi ishtani levadai ishtani lasafek. Do we say, from the fact that he changed in terms of the vadai carbon, in terms of the carbon that he would bring, let's say it was a situation of certainty, so he also it's considered to be a change as far as safek. O dilmar maybe ki ishtani levadai. The ishtani carbon didei. The change is only as regards to the vadai carbon, because there the carbon actually changes. Aval hacha de lo ishtani carbon didei, but over here the carbon's not different by asham talui, meaning the difference between whether he's a regular person or a king in terms of a suffix situation of chaylev, it's always the same asham talui. So ema laisi asham talui. So then one might say that he does bring the asham talui, and the Gemara says teiku. The Gemara leaves that as a question, and the Gemara continues. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught mayam haaretz. The pasuk says that if someone sins b'shogeg, he brings a carbon chatos, and that's me'am ha'aretz. It has to be someone from among the people. And the Brisa says prat lemumar or prat lemishumad. It excludes an apostate. The idea is that a mumar, a mishumad, is not considered really to sin b'shogeg because he would sin anyway. He anyway is not following the laws of the Torah. Rabbi Shimon bar Yossi Omer Mishum Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon bar Yossi says in the name of Rabbi Shimon, Asher lo se'asana b'shgog of Yashim. It says that he's doing something b'shogeg. Hashav b'yediyaso maybe carbon, means to say that if somebody would find out and he would do teshuva, that kind of person brings this carbon al shigagaso. He brings the carbon for his shogeg, for his mistake. But lo shab b'yediyaso eno maybe carbon al shigagaso. But if he wouldn't do teshuva when he finds out, so he doesn't bring a carbon for his shogeg. And essentially, it seems to be the same idea. What Rabbi Shimon bar Yossi is saying in the name of Rabbi Shimon seems to be exactly the same as the Tanna Kama. The idea is that a mishumid does not bring a carbon chatas on a shogeg. And so the Gemara asks, "My beinayu, what's the difference between the two opinions?" Essentially, they're saying the same thing. Amar Rav Hamnuna says, "Mumar lechol chaylev umevi carbon al hadam ika beinayu." The difference is, let's say the person is just a mumar just to eat chaylev. It's not that he violates the entire Torah. He just eats chaylev. He doesn't keep that one particular law. And now the question is, does he bring a carbon? Let's say he eats dam b'shogeg. Ika beinayu, that's the difference between the Tanna Kama and Rabbi Shimon bar Yossi from Rabbi Shimon. Mar Savar, one holds, Kevan de mumar lechol chaylev ledam nami mumar have. If he's a mumar for chaylev, he's a mumar for dam, and therefore there is no carbon. Umar Savar, but the other one holds, meaning Rabbi Shimon holds, ledam miya shav b'yediyasahu. He is considered shav b'yediyaso as far as dam, as far as blood is concerned. If he were to find out, he would not have done, he would do teshuva, he wouldn't do that avera if he knew, and so therefore, according to Rabbi Shimon, we would say he actually does bring a carbon for dam. But the Gemara continues, Rava Amar, but doesn't Rava say to Kuli Alma that everybody agrees, Mumar lechol chaylev lo have a mumar ledam, just because a person is a mumar for chaylev does not mean he's a mumar for dam. So how could you say that the Tanna Kama holds Mumar lechol chaylev in such a situation he's considered ledam nami mumar? How could that be? Everybody agrees a mumar for chaylev is not necessarily a mumar for dam. Ella rather, says the Gemara, Hacha ba'ochel nevela l'teyavon. What's happening over here is this person would eat nevela, he would eat non-kosher because let's say he has an appetite, he doesn't find kosher food, so he's willing to have non-kosher. And then something gets switched, chaylev gets switched with shuman, and he eats it, meaning the shuman is the kosher kind of fat. He thinks he's eating the kosher fat, but really he eats the chaylev, the non-kosher. Essentially, he eats chaylev by mistake. Kam miflagi. That's actually the machlokes between the Tanna Kama and Rabbi Shimon. Mar Savar, one holds, Kevan de l'teyavon achil, since he's eating, he would eat non-kosher if he has an appetite, he doesn't have kosher food. B'mezin, he do that on purpose. So mumar, who he's considered to be a mumar, and that's it. If he's a mumar, no carbon. Umar Savar, the other one holds, Kevan de ilu ashkach tehatera, since this is the kind of person who, if he finds something kosher, lo achal de isura, he won't eat something not kosher. So lav mumar, who he's not considered to be a mumar, such a person, and therefore, again, that's the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Therefore, according to Rabbi Shimon, a carbon will be brought. And the Gemara continues, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Achal chaylev, somebody who eats chaylev, the non-kosher fat, zehu mumar, that's called a mumar, that's an apostate. Ve'ezehu mumar, and what's a mumar? Achal nevelos, u'treifos, shkatzim, u'ramasim, v'shasa yeh nesach. Somebody who eats nevela and treifa and shkatzim and ramasim, creeping, crawling creatures, and he drinks yeh nesach, that's somebody who's considered to be a mumar. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, afa lovish kilayim, and Rabbi Yehuda says, even one who wears kilayim is considered to be a mumar. And the Gemara says, Amar Mar, the master said, going back to this brisa we just quoted, Achal chaylev, if he eats chaylev, zehu mumar, that's a mumar. Ve'ezehu mumar, ochel nevelos v'chulu. And then it says, what's a mumar? And it gives a whole bunch of other things that the person is eating. So my kamar, what exactly is this brisa saying? Amar Rabba bar bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabba bar bar Chana says that Rabbi Yochanan says, Hachi Kamar, this is what it means to say. Achal chaylev l'tayavun. If somebody's eating chaylev because he's hungry, again, the same idea that if he had kosher food, he would eat the kosher food, but he doesn't have kosher food, so he'll eat the chaylev. So harezeh mummer, that's what's called a mummer. That's a person who is considered to be an apostate. But lahachis, let's say he does it just to anger HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He has other food, but still he's going to eat something that's not kosher. Harezeh tzeduki, that person is a tzeduki, and some have the gears of harezeh min. That person is a min, he's a heretic, he's denying everything. Ve'ezehu mummer devistamo tzeduki have it. Now, what is a mummer? Meaning, when can we just assume that the person really is a min? That would be have omer ochel nevelo treifa shkatzim uramasim v'shasi yenesach. The point over here is, if a person is willing to eat disgusting things that normal people wouldn't eat, so there already that shows that he's doing it just lahachis. There we can assume that he is a min in such a situation. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda says af halovish kilayim, even somebody who wears kilayim. And the Gemara asks, "My beinayu." So, what's the difference between Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, and the Tanakama in terms of kilayim? What's the argument with regards to that? And the Gemara says, "Ika beinayu." The difference is kilayim derabanan. They would argue about, let's say, kilayim on a derabanan level. Mar savar midoraisa have a mummer. Derabanan lo have a mummer. One says that if he violates kilayim doraisa, that would make him a mummer. But if he violates kilayim on a derabanan level, that would not be mummer. Umar Savar, and the other one says kilayim. When it comes to kilayim, kevan de mefarsa misure, since it's something that he's going out doing it in public, so afilu b'derabanan, even by a derabanan, have a mummer, he'd be considered a mummer. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. That's what he means when he says afalovish kilayim. And the Gemara continues, Pligi bar Ravacha v'Ravina. There's a machlokas about this between Ravacha and Ravina. Chad one says leteyavon mummer. If a person does it because he has an appetite, that's why he does the avera. So he's a mummer, he's a meshumid, an apostate in that situation. Lahachis, but if he does it to anger HaKadosh Baruch Hu, tzeduki, he's a tzeduki, or min, he's considered to be a min, then already he's a heretic. The Chad the other opinion says, lahachis nami, even if he's doing it to anger HaKadosh Baruch Hu, mummer, he's only considered a mummer, he's not at the level of a min, even if he's doing it to anger HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And according to that opinion, Ela'ezahu tziduki, if that's the case, what's considered to be a min, that would be kol ha'oved avodas kochavim. That would be anybody who worships avodah zarah. And the Gemara continues, Mesechet, we have a question from the following Braisa. Achol parash echad or yito shechad. Let's say the person eats a flea, or he eats a mosquito. Hareza mumri is considered to be a mummer. But over here, delahachis, here he's doing it to anger HaKadosh Baruch Hu. No one eats these as normal food. V'kakari le mummer. And what is it saying? It says that he's a mummer, he's a meshumin. It doesn't say that he's a min in this situation. You see that lahachis is not a min. And the Gemara says, no, Hasam over there, the Yamar etom tam di surah. He's just saying that he wants to taste, what does this prohibited food taste like? He wants to taste the parosh or the yitosh. Essentially, in that particular case, in the Braisa, it really is the same as litayavon. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Ve'ezehu nasi zem melech. What is a nasi? A nasi refers to the king. Tanu Rabban and the rabbis taught. Nasi, it says in the pasuk nasi. Yachol nasi shevet. One might think it just means the leader of the tribe. Ke Nachshon ben Aminadav. Like Nachshon ben Aminadav, he was the nasi of his shevet. Talmud Lomer, we call mitzvos Hashem elokav. It says in the pasuk, from all of the mitzvos of Hashem, his God. Ulahalan hu omer, and further on it says, with regards to a king, it says a similar language. Laman yilmad liyiras Hashem elokav, in order to learn to fear Hashem, his God. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis.